Towns get billed by water utilities for fire suppression. Water utilities serve water to communities for many purposes. Residential customers use water for drinking, washing their hands, flushing toilets, watering their gardens, and more. Commercial customers use water for similar purposes which allow them to run a business. Industrial customers use water for manufacturing or processing. Municipal buildings such as schools, town offices, and public works buildings also require water. Water utilities were originally designed with fire protection in mind as a way to fight fires in town centers. To be able to provide fire protection, utilities are typically sized 2 to 3 times larger than they would need to be if they were providing drinking water alone. Utilities must install and maintain fire protection infrastructure. This is more than just the hydrants, it also includes storage tanks, water mains, pumps, and backup power supplies. This is a 24/7 on-demand standby service of a high volume of fast-flowing water that can be used if a fire occurs. A common question that is asked is, why do towns pay water utilities for fire suppression? The answer to that is, people in town are safer in the event of a structure, vehicle, or forest fire. Water utilities serve town centers, and that is where most of the important town services taxpayers use are located. These may include grocery stores, libraries, and hospitals. Another reason towns pay for fire suppression is that if a school, town office, or other town building should burn, the entire town could pay higher taxes to rebuild them. Property owners in the towns may also benefit from lower insurance rates due to the availability of fire protection. The way that fire protection rates are set is outlined in Chapter 69 of the Maine PUC rules. There are 2 options to determine the amount of gross revenues that water utilities must collect from public fire suppression charges. The most commonly used method is the standard allocation. This is an estimate using decades-old, industry-accepted standards. The other option is a full allocation study. This is a study to determine the actual cost of providing water for fire suppression to the towns they serve. Calculating the standard allocation requires water utilities to know and use the following information, which will then be applied to the fire protection curve: the peak flow, the required fire flow, and the population. The population is based on 2.5 times the number of meters the utility has in service and not the census data for population. Utilities do not get to choose the amount, it is determined by the curve. However, Maine state rules set a minimum and maximum amount of revenue that can be allocated to towns to pay for fire suppression. The minimum is 6% of the utility's revenue requirement and the maximum is 30%. When a utility enters their information into the curve, if they fall below the 6%, then they charge the 6% minimum. And if they come in above the 30% on the curve, then they charge just 30%. The other way to determine the amount of the utility revenue to allocate to the town is a full allocation study. This is a comprehensive study that shows the actual cost of fire suppression for the utility. Having this study done can be expensive but allows water utilities to very accurately determine proper rates based on the true cost of providing water for fire services. A common misconception is that the amount charged to a town for fire suppression is a fire hydrant rental. This is not the case. The rate is not based on the number of fire hydrants a town has. Therefore, adding or removing hydrants does not impact the rate towns pay for fire services to the utility. The only time the number of hydrants a town has impacts their rates is if a utility serves 2 or more towns. In this case, they typically determine how much each town pays for fire suppression by using the number of hydrants. The utility looks at the number of hydrants each town has and determines a ratio of how much each town should pay relative to the other. The utility could request to use a different way to decide how much each town contributes to cover the fire cost. An example would be how many miles of water main each town has. Please remember, this is the only time the number of hydrants is used in determining the amount of money towns pay to utilities for fire suppression. For more information, check out the PUC website. This video is intended for informational purposes only. This information is not legal advice and does not set any legal standard. Regulated public utilities must comply with Maine law and regulations and should consult with legal counsel for interpretation of laws and regulations.